So it took us 3 years, 2 months, and 1 day to get to our first billion tweets on Twitter. We're now doing that every 3 days, which is 340 million tweets every single day on the platform. And those conversations are happening across a range of different categories of conversation, categories relevant to probably every single brand represented here in the room today. And those conversations, we have now 140 million active users on the platform. 100% of those are listening. 60% of our users are contributing to those conversations, contributing to those tweets. And the listening is happening to brands. So people are following brands. So on average, or most people are following 6 or more brands on the platform, and those brands, as you know, are contributing to that conversation, which is a really important connection. So that signal, when somebody follows a brand, this research was done by a company called Compete, and they looked at what this interest signal means. So when somebody follows a brand, they're significantly more likely to visit the brand's website, recommend the brand, or purchase the brand. So a really important signal. And tweets, those billion tweets every 3 days, they're flowing across platforms. Last December, we launched a new version of Twitter. And we did that to make it simpler and faster, but we also did it to make it more consistent across platforms so that if you went to the website, you had the same experience on your mobile device. And mobile is critically important to our company, as most of you probably know. Our history and our DNA is in mobile. So the 140 character limit comes from the fact that the international standard for SMS is 160 characters. We save 20 for the username. So mobile is key to our DNA. And the tweet, being 140 characters, makes it an atomic unit that can travel and be created across any device and consumed across any device with consistency. But each tweet, even at 140 characters, is a window into a whole lot more, right? It can contain a photo, it can contain a video, it can contain a link to more content. So mobile is critically important to our history and also to our future. Right now we're seeing 55% of our active users accessing the platform via mobile, which is a huge number, right? 55% on a base of 140 million actives, and we're growing at 40% quarter over quarter on mobile. And the reason I think mobile is so key is it goes back to the whole idea of what Twitter is and what role it plays in the world. And we like to say that Twitter brings you closer. This is our mission as a company and our positioning. And we don't complete this sentence for a reason. We want our users to complete this sentence because Twitter brings you closer to the things that you care about. Like many things on the platform that our users created, like the hashtag and the retweet, all are things that we've incorporated into the platform, but the users created that first because it's about them, and they will complete this sentence based on what their interests are. It's all about connecting to your interests. It's not just about connecting to friends. It's your friends, it's people you know, it's people you don't know, it's connecting to brands. And all of those connections and who you're following say something about who you are. When you peel away those followers, you see underneath what I look like or what any individual person looks like based on what they're interested in. And those interests, these connections are all open, so it's an asymmetrical follow model. It's public, so you can see all the connections that are happening between people, and it's completely unfiltered, which means that there's no algorithm that chooses what comes into your timeline. You get everything. And that makes Twitter move in real time. Combined with that atomic unit of the tweet, this open platform, tweets move like water in real time. And people are able to connect to their interests in real time. TV is a great example. So we see this pattern over and over and over again, where when viewers tune into TV, Twitter turns on. And this is an example of how people are getting closer to the things they care about, whether it's a TV show, whether they're hearing the conversation, the other perspectives that people have on the show. I know The Bachelor, like tons of people love to tweet about that one. And there's probably no better example of where people are sharing experiences on Twitter than the Super Bowl. So every year we set new records in the Super Bowl of what we call the TPS. So not like the Office Space TPS reports, but tweets per second. So back in 2008, we set a record of 27 tweets per second. This year we broke the record again with 12,000. And to give you some perspective on the growth on our platform, this year the lowest point of tweets per second in the Super Bowl was higher than the highest point the year before. So just massive growth. Twitter brings you closer to these events. And then it's bringing you closer to these really unique experiences. We call them Twitter-only experiences. So here, Kevin Durant, during the lockout, is like, this is super boring. I want to go play flag football. He tweets this out to his followers. And somebody in Oklahoma City tweeted him back. Got a game tonight in Stillwater. I need a deep threat. This lockout's for the lockout. So he replies and says, can I play? And the conversation continues, can you catch? We've won the championship for 3 years, tonight at 10 o'clock. And he replies back again, for real? And he says, only if you bring your A game, yes, for real, come early and hang out and go over some plays. Here's what happened. So needless to say, they won for the 4th year in a row, and just an only on Twitter experience, and it started with that one tweet. So speaking of tweets, I'm going to talk a little bit about our advertising and how that conversation serves as an opportunity for advertisers. I'm not going to spend a ton of time here, but just to level set on what our advertising, and this is a plug for our @TwitterAds handle, if you want to follow @TwitterAds. So just like we made the user experience consistent across platforms, we've recently announced how we're extending our ad products across all devices. And we have 3 ad products. So the promoted accounts that appear in this who to follow recommendation module. It allows you as a brand to gain more followers on a cost per follow basis. We have promoted trends that lets an advertiser be in that top position for 24 hours. And then we have promoted tweets, which allows you as a marketer to take your most engaging content and extend it to other users on the platform into their timelines and on mobile just like you do on the website. And it's on a cost per engagement. So you only pay when somebody engages with promoted tweets. We've also extended our promoted products to small businesses in partnership with American Express. So we're really excited to bring these capabilities to local businesses on the local level where they can target locally to their customers. So, and we have seen that our ads are working. One of the ways we know they're working is that we're seeing these incredible engagement rates, like far beyond anything else that's happening in display. 1 to 3% on promoted tweets, even higher when we run it with a promoted trend. And we think the reason for this is because we have cracked the code on a totally different kind of advertising. And it goes back to what was being discussed here this morning around native advertising. This is, by definition, native advertising. There is no distinction between the ad and the content. If you can tweet, you can run a promoted tweet. And to put it into perspective, if you think about the history of advertising, it's always been like this, right? Tons of content, and advertisers have wanted to deliver their message around this content, either before, or inside, or around. And that canvas, in this kind of environment, the canvas for the marketer has always been an interruption, right? Something like this. We interrupt this broadcast to bring you your message from the sponsors. And what's fundamentally different about Twitter is that on Twitter, the conversation is the canvas. And it's a canvas that provides this incredibly powerful context to do things that you might be surprised by. It's a lot more than 140 characters. So here's one story. Who here is a NASCAR fan? So I used to live in Atlanta, and I would have gotten like a lot more hands in Atlanta. But so this is just an incredible story. So the Daytona 500 this year was rain delayed. Well, you got one fan. All right. Awesome. So Daytona 500 was rain delayed, and so it actually aired during primetime television. And there was a huge crash or explosion that took place and a fire on the racetrack. And typically when that happens, like the ratings plummet because the action starts. But in this case, the ratings actually went up. And it was because of this photo, tweeted by Brad Kozlowski, who's really active on the platform. And talk about Twitter bringing you closer. People saw this first-person perspective of what was happening on the track from a driver. And a massive explosion took place on Twitter. Just the reaction to this and the conversation that took place. Do you seriously have a phone in your car? And he jokingly is saying here, maybe he did have a phone in his car. And then people were asking, were you driving? We were worried, was he tweeting and driving? And he had slowed his car down. They had slowed down all the cars when he took the picture. And just a massive conversation erupted. Within just a few minutes of this picture coming out, he gained over 200,000 followers. Twitter brings you closer. There were articles written in the New York Times, but probably one of the most interesting things that happened is that a brand was very smart about how to be a part of this conversation. So Tide, P&G brand, is a sponsor of the Daytona 500. And their product is used to clean up the track. So they took this photo, tweeted it out with a call to action to submit a caption, and became part of the story and extended that conversation in a way that was native, that was organic, that was relevant. So great for telling stories. It's also a canvas for broadcasting content. Super Bowl this year, 1 in 5 commercials in the Super Bowl this year had a hashtag. And they did that because it's a best practice for driving conversation around your TV spot and extending the conversation around your TV spot. Last year, there was 1 commercial with a hashtag. And here is one of the most talked about spots. So they used the hashtag Beckham for H&M. I tweeted about it. I don't know why it was so popular. But what's so interesting about this is that, so commercials have a 30-second beginning and end, but this was able to live on in the conversation that was happening on Twitter. And even in like this instance, somebody who didn't see the commercial, so Nancy Jones says, what? There was a David Beckham underwear commercial that I missed? And H&M was able to reply to this user and deliver it right on Twitter, extending the reach of this spot.
Baby, do you understand me now?
Extending their investment that they had made in the Super Bowl commercial. So it's also great for broadcasting content around cultural events. Sprite did this really, they sponsor the slam dunk contest. So he just jumped over Diddy. Really, really cool. What was really smart is Sprite put a camera on the backboard and got this shot. In fact, they were doing this throughout the whole broadcast and using promoted products to spread the word, like, hey, you can see these live tweets of photos from the backboard as a backboard cam. So a great canvas for telling stories, for broadcasting content, for participating in events. And we're doing a lot more of this. You may have heard last week during Internet Week and the upfronts, we announced our partnership with ESPN. So we're creating opportunities for brands to bring consumers closer to the things they care about, closer to sports in partnership with us. So one of them that we're working on is hashtag GameFace. So during the NBA Finals, we'll have a brand involved in tweeting out pictures during the game. So this is one example of a whole bunch of things that we're doing in partnership with ESPN, ESPN being one partner that we're working on, lots more of that coming. So it's also a canvas for talking directly to your customers. And this is a behavior and activity that we've seen from very early days on the platform, where brands have started to use it as a critical customer service channel, responding in real time to needs and questions. Virgin America doing this as well. And it is also, finally, it is a conversation for driving transactions. Bonobos is a men's retailer. They sell a lot of pants. And they've done some really innovative things in terms of how to activate on Twitter. They created this thing called a Twixclusive, which is basically like a flock to unlock, where they say, we're going to sell a bunch of chinos at a hugely discounted price, but only after we get a certain number of retweets. And they spread the word about that with promoted tweets, and it gets people virally talking about the sale. When the sale unlocks, people are able to make the transaction. And they have gone on the record saying that their cost per acquisition is 7 times better than any other form of digital media, better for new customer acquisition, and they can do this with 24 hours notice because of the real-time nature of the platform. So it's a canvas for driving transactions, and it's a rich canvas that can do all these different things. It's great in terms of connecting the dots between social, local, and mobile, as we're all talking about today. And I can't think of a better example of a brand that's taking advantage of this canvas, that's connecting through social, local, and mobile to drive transactions than American Express. You're going to hear about the Sync Tweet Save program that was amazing from Michael.
Well, thank you, Shane. So we were at Twitter for Brands the other day, and Joel Lunenfeld from Twitter said that it used to be when people were looking down at their phones during presentations, that was a bad thing, and now it's a good thing. Based on Shane's phone blowing up during that, I trust that's a good thing. So we're going to take you back a little bit to talk about the Twitter Sync program, but we'll start where American Express really started in social. And it was back in 2009 that we said, all right, we think we need to be on social, and what's the appropriate network to do it? And we decided after listening studies that Twitter was probably the best outlet. We wanted to go first in a service mode because our listening said that card members were talking about us and we wanted to be able to service them. So in 2009, we sent our very first tweet. It was a really, really simple tweet. It just said, hello, Twitterverse. This is Beth and Rachel from American Express. We're here to help 9 to 5:30. How can we help? That tweet took 3 weeks and teams of people to put together. So if you fast forward from 2009 to 2012 and what we recently just launched at South by Southwest with Twitter, with our Sync program, we're now getting headlines like, what if the real winner of South by Southwest was Amex from Ad Age? Then there's 3 years worth of just other integrations. And so really what we're going to focus on today is our partnership with Twitter and how we've brought that to life. But as we look first at how American Express approaches digital, we do it from a variety of different respects. One of them is, how do we identify the unmet need? We don't want to do things just to do them. We want to find a place where there's a demand that currently isn't being satisfied, and so that's a key focus for us. How do we prioritize our biggest business opportunities? So Amex is in over 100 countries. There's 60,000 employees, millions of card members and merchant partners. So how do we loop this all together to make sure that we're finding that best business objective and satisfying it via a lot of these digital and social channels? How do we do that then first? And how do we get to market before anybody else so that we can really engage at the beginning and be on the forefront of people's minds? How do we maximize our leverage? How do we create authentic relationships? And these relationships go with our card members, our merchants, but with partnerships with brands like Twitter and as well as our agency partners. And then lastly, and a big cue we take from companies like Twitter is, how do we test and learn? How do we put MVPs out there, so minimally viable products that we can then get to market and iterate on quickly and continue to change? So before we touch on Twitter Sync, we'll talk about how this really started. And this was last year at South by Southwest. American Express said, great, we have this digital closed loop, which is a unique asset to Amex where you can basically sync your card, you register your card really, and then get instant statement credits. So it's a unique facet that American Express can do that nobody else can. And so we said, well, we have this relationship with Foursquare, why don't we go and try to do something really unique? Foursquare inherently is a location-based social network. And so what we did is we provided this sync program on Foursquare, and I'm sure a lot of people have seen these offers. You check in at a restaurant, you see an American Express offer. If your card's synced, you unlock that offer, and then without showing anything, without showing a piece of paper, a Groupon, you automatically get a statement credit once you make that purchase. So we took that success and what we saw in the learnings from Foursquare and applied it to Facebook. And we had a really robust community on Facebook, so we built Link Like Love Out. The beauty here is we're now able to leverage your likes and interests. So what we can do is we can hyper-target those offers directly to you to provide a really simple and engaging utility that you want to keep coming back to again and again. So once we had Foursquare and Facebook up there, we went to Twitter last fall and we said, how can we leverage your platform and really start to build something unique out, leveraging the construct of the tweet, which is a simple construct. It's 140 characters, it's a hashtag, it's a URL. And so, as I mentioned, we always look to what's that unmet need, and we focused first on the merchants. And we knew there were a lot of great merchants on Twitter, and they were actively engaging. They're engaging from marketing perspectives. They're engaging from servicing components. But we found that they really wanted to help drive purchases more and offer these great incentives to their followers. And as we know, a lot of the consumers that actually follow brands, one of the biggest things they follow them for is to get these great offers. We then turned to the consumer side of it. And we said, well, what do consumers want? And consumers want these offers. They want these incentives. They want these coupons, but they don't want to clip them. They don't want to go out on a date, on a first date, and bring a Groupon and show it to the waiter. That's just not a good experience. So we're able to provide that couponless offer experience. And so what we build here is our Sync, Tweet, and Save program, which really is a simple program. All you do is you sync your eligible American Express card to Twitter, and then that's it. You just tweet like you normally do. What we really try to do on all these networks is leverage the native behaviors. So as soon as we take people out of the native experience, they're going to stop engaging with us. So you sync your card, you tweet using special offer hashtags, and the example we have here is for Amex Virgin America to get 10% off. We had Amex Whole Foods, a variety of these different things. Once you tweet, the beauty of it is you get an instant @reply. So they automatically get back to you saying, congrats, you're enrolled. As soon as you go and spend, you get that savings. So you get another reply saying, congrats, in 3 to 5 days, you're going to get a statement credit. So if you haven't synced here for those American Express cards, feel free to go to hashtag Amex Redbox, and you can unlock it and start to see how this process goes. So we started to realize we have this merchant need, we have this card member need, we have this capability, but we actually need merchants on board. So Amex said, well, let's go out and let's try to get 3 or 4 key merchants that we could help promote this with. Once we started to pitch this, we had 17 unbelievable merchants pounding on our doors to the point where we had to shut it down because it was too much for the start. And these are great merchants like H&M and Virgin and Whole Foods and McDonald's, so really great brands that had over 7 million followers. And so the beauty here and the beauty of really Twitter is the fact that these 7 million followers are now getting that marketing message. They're getting a tweet that says Amex Whole Foods, which is both incentivizing people to go to their store and purchase, but it's also sending out more marketing and adding to that virality of the platform. So we now have this capability, we know we have this need, we need to launch it. And so this is really where the agency started to come in. And we did an all-hands meeting early this year, and we brought in all our agency partners from Digitas and Ogilvy and Mindshare and Mbooth and PMK and Momentum. And as you can imagine, a brand like Amex, we have a lot of agencies. So we brought everyone in and we said, how do we make this a really big splash in market? We knew we had something killer with Twitter. We knew it would be a big engagement tool for our card members and merchants. So how do we make a big splash? South by was right around the corner, but that's a highly localized event down in Austin. What we really wanted to do was scale this thing nationally. So we started to think music. It's authentic to Austin. We know we could get an engaged audience on our Google partnership. So we started throwing ideas around of who we could actually bring that would make this big splash. We threw a lot of artists out there. I'm not going to say them here because some weren't great. But then ultimately this name came up. And when we heard Jay-Z, a light bulb went off, and we said, this is exactly the artist that is going to lead to that authenticity in Austin, but then also help us scale nationally. So what we did is we worked with the agency teams to say, how do we build out this 360 experience? And forgive me, I hate saying 360, but I have to for this case. So what we did is we bought the GoGo in-flight media on 90% of the flights going down to Austin. So before you even got to Austin, you were seeing our Jay-Z messages. You were seeing it cross-selled with Sync. Once you landed in Austin, we had a localized offer of spend 10, get 10. It's essentially free money. If you sync your card, you spend 10 anywhere in Austin, you get a $10 statement credit back. The beauty of that spend 10, get 10 is that actually got you into the Jay-Z show. So you went to our convention center booth, you showed us that you synced, and you got a free ticket to go see Jay-Z in concert in a 2,000-person venue, which not many people get that opportunity. And then the last thing is we have the actual show. So we have this great event with 2,000 people of marketers and consumers, but a lot of the digital press. And then we broadcast this to millions of unique people that tuned in to watch it. And not only did they watch it from the engagement perspective of Jay-Z, but then they really started to engage on the Twitter platform. They engaged both with our hashtags, because we launched a Best Buy and Ticketmaster offer, which had this unique music component, but then there was trending. It just started to be a huge conversation that was taking place nationally. And so I'm sure many of you have probably heard about the Sync program, you've seen the press, but it was really one of those win-win-win situations. Our merchants now had an outlet to turn a hashtag into social commerce. Our card members had the ability to take their native behavior on Twitter and turn it into something more. From Twitter's perspective, we like to think it was a big success because we were getting these merchants more involved. We were getting inactive accounts more active. We were getting non-existent accounts onto Twitter. So it was a big win, and it came across in the press. And quite frankly, this is not only the largest Sync program we've ever done to date, this is one of the largest launches American Express has ever done. We had over 1 billion media impressions. We have hundreds of thousands of card members that have synced with millions of dollars in savings. And if you think about it, it's only been around for about 2.5 months. So it's a still new program, and we're really excited to see both where it's going to go in its current form and where we can continue to take it. And so as we talk about where we're going to go, Amex is always looking forward, especially our new groups is focusing on iterating much more quickly. And so again, taking cues from companies like Twitter, how do we think like a startup where a big brand like us is rooted in reality, but we have an eye towards scale? And how do we drive as much engagement that provides as large of a value to our merchant and card member base? How do we identify the non-replicable? So how do we leverage our core competencies and our unique capabilities to put those out to market in creative ways that meet that unmet need? How do we continue to forge these deep partnerships with Twitter as well as our agency partners? And then lastly, how do we stay authentic? And this is authentic as a 162-year-old bank, but it's authentic to our consumers and the merchants that are actually on these networks. So thank you.